Ave Maria, and welcome to Whitelist. Alright, so you've just had dinner, and you're looking for a movie to watch that's not going to put you in the confessional the next day. Where on earth do you start? Well, you might be surprised to learn that the Vatican has a list of recommended films. In 1995, the Pontifical Council released Alcuni Film Importanti, a list of 45 films divided into 3 categories: religion, values, and art. Now, we're going to get to these films, but you might be thinking to yourself, why on earth would the Church do something like this? It's a good question, especially when you consider what Catholics actually believe about the Church. Namely, that she's the one institution founded by Christ to authoritatively promulgate his word to all the nations. It would seem like making a list of movies is somewhat low on her list of priorities, right? This isn't the case, however. From the Vatican II Council document, Inter Mirifica, we read, "Indeed, since the Church exists to proclaim the good news of salvation in Jesus Christ, she cannot fail to pay close attention to the marvelous instruments of mass communication which human genius has produced, and which, because they have an extraordinary bearing on the human spirit, can and should be highly effective means of spiritual and cultural advancement." Couldn't have said it better myself. Alright, let's cut to the chase. What movies made the list? Honestly, most of them are foreign films I've never heard of before, so let's start with the familiar ones. We've got The Wizard of Oz, Fantasia, It's a Wonderful Life, Ben-Hur, Citizen Kane, Schindler's List, Metropolis, and, some surprising picks, Nosferatu, and 2001, A Space Odyssey. There's also a sports movie that made the list called Chariots of Fire, and a western called Stagecoach. Consider my interest piqued. An unusual choice is Decalogue, which is not actually a film, but a 1989 television miniseries produced in Poland. It's worth noting that Pope St. John Paul II did contribute to this list, so I suspect this was one of his picks. Let's take a look at some data now and see if we can identify any trends. The distribution of movie dates is fairly even across the range, with a median between 1952 and 1953. I honestly thought the data would skew to the left, since that's when the Hays Code, a notable censorship program, was in force in the United States. On the contrary, there seems to be a slight preference for newer films. It's worth remembering, though, that most of these movies do not originate from the United States, so the effect of the Hays Code might be negligible here. Speaking of which, here's a pie chart of the films by their country of origin. Unsurprisingly, the United States is the most represented, but it only makes up a quarter of the selected films. Italy is close behind, followed by France, which makes sense since both of these countries historically have a strong film industry. My mother, who knows a lot more about movies than I do, thought the UK had underperformed here with only 4 or 5 movies, depending on how you count. After that, we have a pretty disparate selection of countries, including the USSR. Mexico is the only Latin American country represented, and there are no films from Australia or Africa. With Africa, this is probably because Wakaliwood did not yet exist.
This is serious! Everybody in Uganda knows Kung Fu!
Finally, let's take a look at the distribution of genres. Since I consider religion to be a genre in and of itself, I'm only going to consider those films that the Vatican has classified as being either art or values. A second disclaimer, this graph might not be super accurate since I was classifying films I'd never seen by their Wikipedia pages. The Vatican has a clear preference for drama and biography, but there are some comedies and genre films. Not much to say other than this. It's a bit disappointing this is the only movie list the Vatican has published. There's been a ton of movies in the last 30 years, and I think it'd be great to see a follow-up on this. Let me know in the comments what you think should make the cut. I'd like to mention too that I also do movie recommendations. Now, admittedly, I'm not the Church, but I'd like to think I do a pretty good job with what I've got. Check out some of my other videos here, and make sure you subscribe for more great edifying content. God bless you all, and thank you for watching. Ciao for now.